Hey everybody, we are teaching Tilt Brush. And this particular Tilt Brush is all about playing with extreme senses of scale. We're talking super big and super tiny. So we've seen how in normal Tilt Brush, when you make stuff, if you use both hands to pull apart, you make yourself smaller. And the display we get shows you that you are squirrel size. But what if I want to draw things at ant size? Likewise, from the square, if we grip and pull our hands apart, we get bigger and bigger and bigger. Grip and squeeze together, we get bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can see the biggest size we can get is dinosaur size. But what if I want to draw something mountain size, even bigger than the hills in the background? You can. There's a little bit of a trick to it. It's very straightforward, and it's really a very simple trick, but there are a few ramifications, a few things that might happen that we should talk about. So let's clear everything out back to normal human size. And I'm going to get that framework again, just so we have a rough idea of our normal regular size. Now I'm going to do the old bring it apart to get smaller and smaller. And I'm going to move my framework back there. So we have a nice framework in the background. And I'm going to add, in this really tiny squirrel-sized scale, a couple of interesting glowing symbols. Okay, interesting glowing symbols. At squirrel size, they're the size of me, but I really want to make them ant size. The simplest, easiest way to do that is using your selection tool. So I'm just going to select these pieces. Now, if I know I'm going to make them extreme, big or small, I strongly recommend that you group these pieces. Because once you make them ant size, it's really hard to get all those pieces again. But now that they're grouped, I'm going to take these guys and just shrink them. Now these symbols are ant-sized. I'm actually going to duplicate them and get some writing here in this weird, alien, bizarre writing. There we go. There's my little strip of interesting stuff. I'm going to add a dark background behind it, just so you guys can see it a little more clearly. And zoom into the camera. And I'm going to come in myself. So I'm at squirrel size. And you can see these letters are really, really tiny. They're right in front of me, right here. But if I go back to normal human size, here they are. See that little green sparkle? That's all we get, even in the headset. I'm going to keep it normal human size, but we're going to move things close to the camera. Even close to the camera, they're really tiny. There we go. So we have achieved our ant-sized writing by making it as small as we can and then selecting it and shrinking it even further. So here at normal size, all I see is a little green sparkle. If I get really close, I can see there's something there. If I shrink down all the way, I might actually be able to read it. Simple little trick for making art at the tiny, tiny scale. Because it's grouped, if I need to make changes, it's much easier to grab it and enlarge it. Make those changes, regroup and shrink it again. Working that tiny does give you some extra steps, but it is possible. So now I'm going to take this human scale with our little green speck, you can barely even see right there, and now I want to make giant mountains. So now I'm going to scale everything, grab it, bring it together to get up to dinosaur size. There's my normal human frame. And at dinosaur size, I'm going to grab a different color and make some mountains. mountain. And then more mountains behind it. Snow caps and things that come out from it and that type of thing. Give a little bit of a depth to it since we are working in 3D here. I've got that mountain range. At human size, it's impressive. It's nice. It looks more building size than mountain size. So just like before, I'm going to scale myself up to dinosaur, and now I'm going to select all these pieces. A little bit more of artwork, so I'm going to move around a little bit, make sure I get all these pieces. I think that's everybody. But now, just like before, I'm going to grab it, and I'm just going to use both hands and stretch it. Grab it again, stretch it some more. Grab it again, stretch it some more. Grab it again, stretch it some more. Now, the size of this mountain range is going way beyond the edge of the horizon. When I turn off my selection, you can actually see how those hills go beyond the horizon line. If I go back to human scale, here's my framework. Now those mountain lines are towering above me. Another thing you'll notice as I change the scale, see how they disappear from behind me? Your visor, your headset, has something called draw distance. How far away can it get before it doesn't even bother drawing it anymore? So once I get to that big mountain size, you can see how if I get too far away, the mountains just disappear. They just get erased. They don't bother drawing those mountains. But when I change to different skies, it fills it back in. Here in VR, now those are impressive. Those are really big. I get a much bigger sense of scale. They go so far up. If I used other materials instead of the light, I'm now going to do the same thing using the hull tool, the hull brush, the one that actually makes mountain shapes. See these that I'm making here? Oops, getting tangled up in my own cables. So now I've got this mountain style going here. I'm going to select these pieces, group these pieces, and now I'm going to grab them and scale them up to mountain size. Let's see. And it's just grabbing it and stretching it bigger and just getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Oops, that's a little too big. Unselect. Now you can see how big these are. These mountains go beyond the edge of the landscape. And with the headset, you can see all the way up to the jagged peaks, but they feel like they're very, very, very far above you. So when I go back to normal human scale, that is a vast mountain range receding into the distance. You can even see it going into the distance. Let's grab it, angle it down a little bit, just so you guys can see the mountain tops themselves a little bit better. You can see that they're so far away, they even start to fade out. That fade, remember, is controlled by your fog. So let me get my fog back here. If I increase the fog, you can see how the mountains disappear. With zero fog, I can see all the way into the distance. You can even see how the hills are now in front of those mountains. Since my fog is very nearly the same color as the background, they disappear. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to change the fog color to a full black. Now they become silhouettes as they fade into the distance. Let's get our fog at about 3% so that we can see how the mountains fade away from close up into the distance. And the more fog you give, the sooner they're going to fade away. But that scale, that stretching it bigger, even when I'm dinosaur size, I'm going to grab these guys and stretch them so big that even with zero fog, they go so far into the distance you can't even see them anymore. There we go. Mountains combined with our super, super tiny flea writing. Flea writing. So tilt brush, even though they only tell you you can go squirrel to dinosaur, by a few simple tricks, you can make details either big as a planet, tiny as a flea, and everything in between. Hopefully this gives you some ideas of some cool things you can try on your own. I'm going to put in our usual message here. Let's get a nice bright light here. So thanks for joining us. We do this all the time, usually about weekly, on youtube.com/shamelessmayhem. Feel free to leave questions in the comments. So if you have ideas of tools you want more uses of, or different styles of art you'd like us to try to do, let us know. There we go, our tiny, our big scale in tilt brush beyond your normal sizes. Have fun, everybody, and we'll see you soon.